Here are 10 transfers which could potentially happen before the end of the summer transfer window. First off, and it's Harry Kane. It's the big one that's been going on all summer, and we're yet to see any real movement. Manchester City had a bid rejected earlier on in the transfer window, and still, Harry Kane is a Tottenham player. Now, after beating Manchester City on the opening weekend, you may have thought that that could be enough to convince Kane to stay, but I don't think so. Once Manchester City find the right amount of money that will surely pique Tottenham's interest, I think we'll be seeing the England captain at the Etihad Stadium. And number 2 on this list could actually be involved in the Harry Kane deal, and it's Bernardo Silva. There have been some rumours that City, if they can't afford Kane outright with cash, will be involving a player in a cash plus swap deal, and Bernardo Silva could be one of them. The reason being that Manchester City spent a lot of money on Jack Grealish, and it now means there's increased competition for places. With all of the other players that Manchester City have got in the attacking area of the pitch, it's understandable why Bernardo Silva, who has spent so many years at the club, won so many trophies, wants to move on to a new challenge. If it's not to be in the swap deal moving to Tottenham, there are reports that Atletico Madrid are interested in the Portuguese player. Next up, and talking of attacking midfielders, we move to Philippe Coutinho, and yes, he's still a Barcelona player. After moving from Liverpool, there was a lot of hype around him, and now at 29 years old with a couple of loan deals and not really too much of a consistent season under his belt at Barcelona, it looks as though he's part of this unwanted crew with the likes of Griezmann, Samuel Umtiti, Ousmane Dembele, and quite a few others that really, I think Barcelona wouldn't mind if they stuck around, but they prefer to get rid of them, get some money in, and of course, get them off the wage bill. Philippe Coutinho, I think, at 29 years old, can still offer quite a lot to many teams around Europe, and it's a transfer that I think could go down to the wire. Next up, and talking of unwanted attacking midfielders in La Liga, we move from Barcelona to Real Madrid and to Isco. There were reports a few weeks ago that AC Milan were interested in bringing him in, but that didn't really come to fruition. And at the moment, it looks as though people like Martin Odegaard, a young, promising player at Real Madrid, can't even get the game time that he wants in midfield. So what hope is there for Isco? I mean, yeah, if there's a few injuries, he could be thrown at the last minute, maybe play in some of the cup games, but honestly, he doesn't really need to waste the rest of his career sat on the Real Madrid bench. And again, much like with Philippe Coutinho, he has so much to offer, and I'm sure many teams in the Premier League especially would take him, even if it's just on a one-year loan deal. Moving on then, and to Marcel Sabitzer, and if he's going to make a transfer, it's pretty much going to only be in one direction, and that is in the direction of Bayern Munich. The RB Leipzig captain has 1 year left on his deal. They don't want to lose him for a free, so apparently 18 million euros is enough to bring him in. Now, Bayern are the team that he wants to move to, and of course, with their new head coach Julian Nagelsmann being at Leipzig for the past few seasons, he wants to rejoin him as well. But apparently, even for 18 million, Bayern don't quite have the funds just yet. There are rumours that they need to sell Corentin Tolisso first before they've got enough money to bring in the Austrian playmaker, and I'm sure they'll just be able to do it. There's just no way that Leipzig want to lose him on a free. Apparently a few other teams were interested, but Sabitzer has his heart set on a move to the Bundesliga champions. Next up then, and we actually go back to Real Madrid, to a player whose move there has just... to say it's not worked out is a bit of an understatement. Luka Jovic moved to Real Madrid for 60 million euros. He then went on a loan deal to Frankfurt at the back end of last season, and it didn't even work out there. That was where the place he made his name, and he's still not seeing anything from what we saw from him a few years ago. We're not seeing the Luka Jovic that made Real Madrid pay 60 million for him in the first place. There was a loan offer from Inter Milan which was rejected because Real Madrid want to get rid of him permanently, but it looks as though the massive stumbling block will be his wages. They reportedly went up to around 250,000 euros per week when he moved to Real Madrid, and I can't see any team around the rest of Europe willing to pay even half of that for a striker who's looked out of the goals in the last few seasons. Maybe there will be a move somewhere, but look, even Frankfurt don't want him back at the moment. Next up, we're talking of ones that will be very, very difficult to do, and we're looking at Saul Niguez. Now, apparently he's been told after so many years at Atletico Madrid that he can leave the club. It's just the fact that no one can afford him. Like, if they want to buy him outright from Atletico, they're looking at over 60 million euros. And if they want to bring him in, his wages are quite large as well. This really leaves only a couple of clubs who need a midfielder and who could afford him. One of them being Liverpool, and I don't really think they're going to be splashing the cash this late in the transfer window. And the other being Manchester United. They've been linked with loads of players, pretty much every single name under the sun. But whilst Paul Pogba is still a Manchester United player, it doesn't look like they'll be spending the big funds to bring in the Atletico Madrid Madrid midfielder. If they are going to go for another midfielder, it looks as though Eduardo Camavinga could be the one on the top of their priority list. Next up, I'm moving to Chelsea, or a potential deal for Joules Kounde from Sevilla. Now, the latest according to transfer guru Fabrizio Romano is that Kounde and Chelsea actually have an agreement in place for him to join the West London club. The wages are sorted, the bonuses, the contract length, this, that and the other, but Kounde, very respectfully, doesn't want to force the issue with Sevilla. I think there's going to be a bit of a knock-on effect here. Once Sevilla sign a centre-back replacement for Kounde, he can then go to Chelsea, and once that happens, the likes of Kurt Zouma can then leave Chelsea and find more first-team football elsewhere. Kounde has been brilliant for Sevilla since signing from Bordeaux, helping them back to the Champions League and to Europa League title a couple of years ago, and I think he'd be a fantastic fit in Thomas Tuchel's side. Moving into number 9, and someone who's been linked with a return to the Premier League pretty much since he left it, and that is Aaron Ramsey. He moved on a free from Arsenal to Juventus, and because of this, because they didn't have to pay any money in a transfer fee for him, they gave him a contract of around 400,000 euros per week. Clearly a deal that nobody else in Europe is pretty much going to be able to afford, or would even consider paying for a 30-year-old who's been known to be a little bit injury prone. Juventus have seen it. He's great when he's on the pitch, but he just barely ever makes it onto it because of all his injury worries. He's been linked with a return to Arsenal, with a return to the Premier League with rivals Tottenham, which I can't see happening. Wolves have also been mentioned, Newcastle. There was even a few other clubs from abroad at one stage, but it looks as though for the moment this deal may hinge on whether or not Miralem Pjanic leaves Barcelona and returns to Juventus. If he does, it may just push Ramsey further out the exit door. And lastly but not least on this list is finally one of the Liverpool backup attackers who's going to be leaving the club, and it's Xherdan Shaqiri. Much is to be said about the future of Divock Origi, but he looks happy at Liverpool at the moment. But for Shaqiri, he really wants to go. He's got 1 year left on his deal and he needs first-team football. We see it every few years at an international tournament. When Switzerland take to the pitch, Shaqiri's brilliant and everyone thinks, God, why doesn't he play more? Why doesn't he get a move? Finally, it looks like he may be moving on. There were rumours that Lyon had agreed a deal with Liverpool for him, but those have not come to fruition just yet, and it looks as though Burnley may be the ones who meet the asking price from Jurgen Klopp's men. Really interesting to see a player like Shaqiri playing at Burnley, but who knows? This could be an absolute masterstroke from Sean Dyche, and we could see the Swiss attacker back to his very best. So there are 10 deals that may or may not happen as we edge towards the end of the transfer window. You let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on whether they will or will not take place, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.